The professional transition from a fee-for-service clinical environment to the executive leadership of a program of all-inclusive care for the elderly, or PACE, represents one of the most significant shifts in medical practice today. For the incoming medical director, this move involves shifting from a volume-based mindset where success is measured by procedures and encounters to a value-based capitated model. In this world, success is defined by clinical outcomes, the maintenance of functional status, and the fiscal stewardship of a comprehensive healthcare budget. This lecture, Organizational Governance and Medical Policy, is your foundational roadmap for navigating the complex regulatory, operational, and ethical landscapes of PACE. We have two core objectives today. First, we will define the intricate relationships between the governing body, the program director, and the medical director. We'll explore where these roles intersect and where they must remain strictly autonomous. Second, we will build a framework for developing evidence-based clinical policies that satisfy both the high standards of geriatric medicine and the rigorous demands of federal and state oversight. Throughout this session, I will reference two critical tools: the governance matrix and the collection of sample medical policies. These are not merely templates. They are essential for ensuring organizational harmony and legal compliance under federal regulations. The PACE program is a unique three-way partnership between the federal government, specifically the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, the state administering agency, and the PACE organization itself, operating as both a health plan and a direct provider of care. A PACE organization assumes 100% of the financial risk for the frail elderly participants it serves. This capitated financing structure allows for unprecedented creativity in care delivery, but it also places a profound burden of responsibility on you, the medical director. You must ensure that clinical decisions are never compromised by fiscal pressures. In the traditional medical model, a physician operates within a system where payers set the rules and the doctor reacts. In PACE, you are part of the payer system. This dual identity requires an aggressive protection of clinical boundaries. If the boundary between fiscal management and clinical necessity becomes porous, the organization risks not only poor participant outcomes, but also severe federal sanctions and the loss of its provider agreement. Let's look at the regulatory architecture of PACE governance. Under federal law, a PACE organization must maintain a clear organizational structure anchored by a triad of leadership: the governing body, the program director, and the medical director. The governing body, often a board of directors, possesses full legal authority for the organization's operations. It is the entity that signs the PACE program agreement and is held accountable for fiscal operations, the quality improvement program, and participant safety. One critical requirement is participant representation. Federal law mandates that the voice of the participant informs high-level policy. This is achieved through a participant advisory committee, where participants and their representatives must constitute a majority. This committee provides minutes to the governing body, and a participant representative serves as a liaison to the board. This is not a symbolic gesture. It is a regulatory mandate designed to prevent the marginalization of the participant in a capitated environment. The program director is the responsible for overall oversight, marketing, and managing the interdisciplinary workforce. However, a key regulatory firewall exists here. The program director must ensure that medical, social, and supportive service decisions are insulated from the influence of the fiscal manager. As medical director, your role is clinically specific. While the governing body handles the business in business and Miss Basie, you are responsible for the delivery of care, clinical outcomes, and the oversight of the Quality Assessment and Performance Improvement Program, or QAPI. When you review the governance matrix, the division of authority is clear. The governing body is accountable for fiscal operations and the budget. You, the medical director, are accountable for clinical protocols and medical policy. The program director handles provider network contracts. This matrix highlights an executive reality. You must be an active participant in board-level discussions. You are the primary translator of clinical data into strategic insight. When the board reviews the budget, you must be there to explain how a spike in hospitalization rates is a clinical problem requiring a quality intervention, rather than just a financial problem requiring a cost cut. The heart of the PACE model is the interdisciplinary team, or IDT. It is the core clinical decision-making body and the authorizing agent for all services. For a director coming from fee-for-service, this shift can be jarring. In a traditional clinic, the physician is the ultimate authority. In PACE, you're one of 11 equal members of a team that operates through consensus. Federal law mandates 11 specific roles on the IDT. This diversity is essential because the needs of the frail elderly are never just medical. They are social, functional, and psychological. This team includes the primary care physician, registered nurse, social worker, physical therapist, occupational therapist, and recreational therapist. It also includes the dietitian, the PACE center manager, the home care coordinator, a personal care attendant, and even the transportation driver. Your role in relation to the IDT is one of coaching and oversight. You must ensure the team understands that the plan of care is a legal document. Each member is responsible for reporting changes in a participant's condition, and you must establish the documentation standards that make this communication effective. Compliance with assessment timelines is a non-negotiable part of PACE governance. The IDT must conduct an initial comprehensive assessment within 30 days of enrollment. Reassessments occur every 6 months, and unscheduled reassessments are triggered by any significant change in status. Consider a scenario where a participant is hospitalized for a hip fracture. Upon her return, you must ensure an unscheduled reassessment is completed within 14 days. If the IDT fails to revise the plan of care to reflect her new mobility limitations, the organization is out of compliance. Now let's discuss medical policies. These are the standing orders of the PACE organization. They ensure the entire team understands the clinical standards that guide the program. You are responsible for reviewing and approving these policies at least annually, basing them on current standards like the Beers criteria for potentially inappropriate medication use. Take falls prevention, for example. Falls are the most significant clinical risk in PACE. An effective policy must be multifactorial. It should mandate standardized screening, like the timed up and go test, during every semi-annual assessment. If a participant scores high, the policy should trigger an automatic home safety assessment by the occupational therapist and a medication review by the physician to identify drugs that increase fall risk. By codifying these steps, you remove the variability of individual choice and ensure a consistent standard of care. Polypharmacy is another hallmark of this population. In the PACE model, you're responsible for the cost and outcomes of all medications. Your policies should include directives for stepped withdrawal of psychoactive medications and the avoidance of strong anticholinergic drugs. The goal is the lowest effective dose for the shortest possible time to reduce adverse drug events, which drive hospitalizations. Perhaps the most difficult area for a new director is the service determination request process. A request to initiate or change a service must be brought to the IDT as expeditiously as the participant's condition requires, but no later than 72 hours. A critical regulatory nuance is the in-person reassessment rule. If the team expects to deny a service, they must conduct an in-person reassessment before the final decision is made. Imagine a participant's daughter requests a 24-hour private duty nurse for her mother. The team believes this is not medically necessary. You cannot simply say no. The IDT must send a nurse and a social worker to the home for a reassessment. If you still conclude the service isn't necessary, you must provide a written denial that explains the clinical reasoning in understandable language. This is where the firewall is tested. A fiscal manager might see the cost and push for a denial. You must protect that boundary. The decision must be based on clinical necessity and the participant's well-being, not the bottom line. If fiscal pressure dictates a denial, the organization violates federal law. Looking ahead, you are the Chief Compliance Officer for the clinical record. CMS has announced significant changes to the PACE audit protocol beginning in 2026. The shift moves toward a data-driven model using the Encounter data system. Every diagnosis code your team submits will be used to calculate risk scores and payment rates. In fee-for-service, a missing code meant one denied claim. In PACE, missing a diagnosis like congestive heart failure can result in significant underpayment for the entire year. You must oversee the accuracy of documentation to ensure it is audit defensible. The 2026 protocol also introduces a stricter three strikes rule for data submissions. CMS will allow only 3 attempts to submit a usable data universe. If the third attempt is rejected, it's a formal finding of noncompliance. You must collaborate closely with your IT and data teams. You cannot leave data submission to others. You must verify its accuracy before it goes to CMS. Finally, we must address palliative and end of life care. One of the greatest benefits of PACE is the ability to provide high quality comfort care. It's a common misconception that participants must choose between PACE and hospice. While a participant must disenroll from PACE to receive the Medicare hospice benefit, your organization can provide end of life services directly. Your palliative care policy should mandate early integration at the time of diagnosis, standardized symptom assessment, and explicit support for the caregiver. This is the mission of PACE in its purest form, maintaining dignity and honoring the preference to remain at home. As we conclude, remember that you are more than a physician. You are a strategic leader. Respect the governance triad, protect the clinical firewall, and master the service determination process. Your immediate action items are: first, review the governance matrix and meet with your program director to clarify your authorities. Second, review the sample medical policies on falls and polypharmacy and discuss their implementation with your team. Third, conduct a documentation audit on 5 random charts. Ensure every problem in the assessment has a corresponding goal in the plan of care. Welcome to the PACE family. The transition is challenging, but the impact you will have on the lives of our most vulnerable seniors is immeasurable. Thank you for your leadership and your commitment to this mission.